Welcome to Your Story Doesn't End Here, the mental health podcast for military and veterans. I'm your host, Rachel, and my mission with this podcast is to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, bring awareness to mental health issues, and provide value and solutions to help make life more abundant. Hey everyone, thanks for coming back for another episode. Today's guest is Michelle. She has been in the military for over 10 years. She is an avid outdoors woman, and I'm so excited to have her on the show today. Michelle, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Well, I'm just going to pass it off to you and let you share your story, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. I would say in the grand scheme of things, my story is pretty short. I've been in the Navy, as you said, for over 10 years. The biggest thing that I've dealt with my entire career is anxiety, and not just like general anxiety, but like the worst version of it. And as I continued my career, it progressively got worse, to where I would have attacks for no reason. And it still affects me to this day. Like it could be the smallest thing, just someone looking at me in a way that I perceive like I did something wrong, and it can just set me off. It's stuff that has definitely affected my home life because I bring it home as well. Some of the biggest things I've dealt with are like physical responses to my anxiety, like headaches. I most commonly have headaches when I wake up because I clench my mouth shut all the time. I'll have chest pains, like sweating. And I notice that most of it stems from my career. For the longest time, I didn't go and get help for it because in my mind, it was mostly the fact like I didn't have any huge trauma in my life. So I thought I didn't really deserve to feel this way. When I finally decided to go get help, which actually wasn't until recently, I sat down with a therapist and they kind of went over my questionnaire. They said in addition to severe anxiety, they would diagnose me with depression, which for myself is not something I thought I had. I didn't think I had it mostly because what I was feeling was a lot of fear for no reason. And I wasn't really feeling sad. And when I felt sad or overwhelmed, it was because of the stress and my anxiety. So when they told me that, I started crying a little bit. I felt validated, I guess, because I wasn't crazy like I had made up in my mind. And it took me so long, I guess, to say to get help because I know that mental health isn't really something that's talked about, I guess I'm trying to say in a good way in the military. And I also harbored that guilt of feeling like I shouldn't feel this way. And it also stems from some interactions I've had with leadership during my career of people kind of blowing that stuff off. And not for me, it's incidences I've witnessed or heard about from other people. One of them predominantly is a friend of mine in my current command who does suffer from depression and other mental health issues. And a chief I had learned about it, and his response was, "You need to man up, or you need to get a backbone." So when stuff like that happens and there's other people around, other people hear about it, it's not like you want to go forward and let them know that you are suffering. So it's been a continuation of that. I think those of us who do go through this kind of stuff, we are more apt to help or want to help other people because we understand that. But I do know that when you suffer from depression, anxiety, or both, or anything like related to mental health, that sometimes it's hard not only to advocate for yourself, but other people. And what I mean by that is you're tired, you're overwhelmed, and sometimes it's hard to take care of yourself. So, how can you take care of someone else? That's why I think it's super important for people who don't necessarily have these issues or deal with that they take up the helm, you know what I mean? And that they continue to learn and that we all talk about this, and it needs to be a conversation that never ends, and work together.
I also had anxiety and depression, mostly aggravated by my career when I was in the military. And so for me personally, I felt like I couldn't tell anyone a lot of times because being a female in the military, having anxiety just kind of gets pushed off to like, oh, you're a female and you're just exaggerating because you're, I guess, just doing what females do in a sense of like how people would treat me in the military. Did you ever feel like anyone just kind of pushed off your issues because of you being a female, or did you ever bring up your issues to anyone with having anxiety?
Oh, that was a good one. So I definitely get what you're saying. So the times that I do have anxiety attacks, I dismiss myself and like I'll go to the female locker room or bathroom, and it could be anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes and I'll cry. And the reason I do that is because I do feel like if I allowed myself that to be that vulnerable, like in my space, maybe with other people, that they would treat it as like, oh, you know, you're an emotional female. So I could say that I haven't really shown others my story or my anxiety attacks or anything like that. There was one time I say that I slipped up, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word, but I just became a qualified supervisor in my shop, and there was a misunderstanding. It's really hard to explain, but it boiled down to a master chief and my shop chief getting mad at me for something that I didn't really do. And that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And I went behind my building and I sobbed. And I wasn't just, you know, like I needed to cry because I was angry. It's like I was releasing all of this pent up anxiety. And I was back there for almost 2 hours, just sobbing. I couldn't breathe. The chief at the time came up, just let me know, like, hey, we understand now it's a misunderstanding. You're good, you know? And then I told him, I was like, I'm not good. I've been suffering from anxiety for a while, and this just kind of really released the floodgates. And he kind of ignored it. He was like, well, if you need anything, let me know. And then left. He didn't really know how to either handle it, and that could be a possibility. B, maybe it could have been that I was a female and he thought I was overreacting, or C, he just didn't know what to do. But beyond that, I've been I feel like pretty careful in my workspace about revealing that side of me. But outside the workspace or even on social media, I've been pretty strong about sharing everything.
So do you feel like it would be easier, I guess, for lack of a better word, in the workspace if you were able to be more open about what you're dealing with leadership and or coworkers?
I think it would be, but right now I don't feel it's like the time. Like the military as a whole is still struggling with mental health and how to perceive mental health. And I know there's people out there that are really into the, hey, why don't you just feel better? Or B, you're being over dramatic. So I think if there's a time where we could all, in a perfect world, if mental health was widely accepted and we could all help each other, then yeah, I would say it would be amazing if I could be like, hey guys, I'm starting to freak out a little bit. I just need to take a break. That would help. But I don't think the military is there yet, in my opinion.
So what do you do for, besides crying, because that is actually a really good coping mechanism to just release like emotions and release just like pent up stuff inside. Besides that, what else do you do to help deal with your anxiety?
Well, at work, I only kind of have that little narrow corridor of escape, if you will. At home, I feel more comfortable. Like my house is my safe space, and my husband, although he might not understand how it feels, I can tell him, hey, I'm having a bad brain day, and he's there to just support me. He doesn't ask me like continuous questions. He just lets me know that he's there to help, and that really helps. Outside of the military, the outdoors, I know you said I'm an outdoors woman. It really does help me. When I'm not hunting during the summer, even sometimes fall and winter, and we have a weekend off, we're camping. And when I'm kind of outside in nature, I guess, I'm not trying to sound corny, but I can disassociate, and all I think about in that moment is where I am, and I feel good. But there's also times, especially when I'm able to go home and go hunting, I'll be out there for a couple weeks, and it feels amazing because I don't feel that constant fear and anxiousness or the depression settling in. I'm just living in that moment outside where I want to be. And then when I come back, almost every single time, I tell my husband immediately that I miss the mountains, because as soon as I leave, I kind of have that dread kind of come back and settle on my chest. And I know it's going to be there until I can kind of make an escape again.
Is there anything else that has been really helpful for you? I mean, I know you mentioned that you went to mental health. So, and it sounds like you had a decent experience there from what you said. Is there anything that they have provided for you that has been really helpful for your anxiety, or more just in like validating what you knew you had?
So the validation definitely was amazing, although it didn't like get rid of my symptoms, if you will. The experience I had was okay. I realized that I'm not really a top priority. When I first went to them and explained everything, the doc that I talked to was actually very incredible. And I had told him, listen, there's never been a point in my life where I wanted to kill myself. But there has been points in my life where I wish that choice was taken from me. Like I'm driving down a road and a car hit me. And he was very understanding. And that's when he told me, like, I know that you feel like your anxiety is prominent, but also your depression is prominent. And because I was not having suicidal ideations, which I understand, there are more important people that need to be taken care of in that moment. However, it was hard because I would get to talk to him, and then the next opening wouldn't be for another couple months. They did get me on medication, which actually has been really wonderful. I know that with my upbringing, it was my family's thought is really like, just kind of will it away, try different natural methods. So I grew up believing like, man, I really don't want to take any medication for this. and I don't know how I react, but I actually started taking some, and it's been super helpful.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was taking Zoloft when I was in, and for me, I know that helped my anxiety a lot. And so I just kind of want to put out there, because you brought up a really good point. A lot of people feel like medication is like, there's still this kind of taboo around it. But medication can be a really great way to just manage, at least for me, like managing those physical symptoms of anxiety was like huge for me. And so I don't know about you and your anxiety and like what specifically it helped with, but there's no shame in taking medication. And I'm glad that you're able to have something that really helped out. You do some work with veterans, I believe, with a outdoor group. So I would love to have you just kind of elaborate on that, just to kind of provide some value for anyone who might be listening, who might find solace in the outdoor space like you do.
Okay, so before my current command, I was a volunteer / pro staffer, they call it, for a 501c nonprofit group called the Fallen Outdoors. And it is a group dedicated solely to getting veterans and active duty members in the outdoors, not only because we love hunting and fishing, but it can be a form of therapy. I was the fundraising rep for a long time before I transferred to a new command. My schedule would not allow me to do that anymore. And I had a lot of amazing experiences, not only for myself, but seeing what this group could do. One of the more prominent memories I have is we were doing a fundraiser outside of a Cabela's in Lacey. And this lady came up to me and she started talking to me about the Fallen Outdoors. And her husband, as well as herself, were both veterans, but she started crying because she said her husband was in a wheelchair and she didn't have the strength, to like load him up and take him fishing, and he loved to fish. So I took her number down and I gave her information, the husband's information, their number, to some of the amazing guys I got to work with. I was like, hey, this is the deal. Obviously I don't really know about fishing, but a lot of these guys have been here forever and are amazing fishermen. And they got that guy out. And I wasn't on that trip, but I can only imagine like how special it was for everybody involved. So it was stuff like that with this group that I really like. I'm hoping there's a day that I could become more involved again, but they do a bunch of amazing trips. In Washington alone, I know they do a big one to the Yale Reservoir to fish for kokanee. And there's been other instances where guys have gotten out and got to go elk hunting or deer hunting, and they've never gotten to do that before. And it's not just Washington, it is national. And if you go to the fallen-outdoors.com, it'll kind of show you all the trips that they do, and it will show you what states they're in. So you can reach out and either volunteer or B, go on a trip. And all the trips are like giant trips. It could just be people in the Fallen Outdoors Facebook page, like, hey, like I've never got to hunt a mule deer before. Is there anyone willing to teach me? And either a pro staffer or either other veterans that are on the page will come together and help somebody out. So it's a really amazing community just for hunters and veterans and fishermen alike. And I think it's important that people realize that the outdoors and hunting and fishing can have its own form of therapy for people who are suffering.
That's amazing. I will definitely link all the information for that in the description box below for anyone who wants to check that out. And that is all I had for today. I appreciate you being on the show, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen in today. Each week, I'll be bringing you value in the mental health space and its direct impact on service members and veterans. If you feel you personally got value today from this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a 5-star rating and review and share this to your audience. Until next time, remember, your story matters, your mental health matters, and your story doesn't end here.